but that day is set aside not just as part of a amorphous weekend, but really the Lord's Day, Dies Domini. Can Catholics work on Sundays? It's a question that comes up a lot, especially in a world where our Sundays have kind of been subsumed into the overall weekend, and that Sunday as having a pride of place as the first day of the week and as a religious day has waned, especially in many cultures where stores are open on Sunday, restaurants are open on Sunday. In many places, sports dominate Sundays. And I don't just mean participatory sports by children or teens, but I'm talking about football on Sundays. I mean, it seems like the culture has really gone away from Sunday as the Lord's Day, and it's sort of subsumed into this larger, more amorphous weekend. So how are we as Catholics supposed to think about Sunday? And here I want to look at the relationship between work on Sunday and the role of Sunday itself. So a good place to turn, as always, is our beloved Catechism. And here I'm going to turn to section 2185, 2185. And it says here, on Sundays and other holy days of obligation, the faithful are to refrain from engaging in work or activities that hinder the worship owed to God, the joy proper to the Lord's day, the performance of the works of mercy, and the appropriate relaxation of mind and body. Family needs or important social service can legitimately excuse from the obligation of Sunday rest. The faithful should see to it that legitimate excuses do not lead to habits prejudicial to religion, family life, and health. Great entry, 2185 in the Catechism. So what is this all about? Because I know a lot of persons who have to, by virtue of their profession, work on Sundays. There's two different kinds of work. There's necessary work, which is needed in order to provide for the sustenance of an individual or a family. And then there's what I would call servile labor, which is labor that doesn't need to be done on Sundays, but is perhaps done in a manner to get ahead. So for instance, let's say you have a very successful lawyer who neglects his family on Sunday in order to go into the office to get that next promotion, when in fact there's another way that he could organize his schedule and be able to do that kind of work at another time. So what ends up happening on Sunday is Sunday isn't really treated as the Lord's Day. In fact, I know many people who just routinely miss Mass on Sunday because they come up with some other really serious reason. And when you begin to peel away the reasons for the missing of Mass, they're not very serious at all. In fact, there's really little excuse for them to be able to do some obligation and make Mass as well, because of the number of Masses that are typically offered in a parish. And especially if you live in a suburban or urban area, it's not difficult to find at least one Mass either on Saturday night. Those began starting at 4 o'clock. I've seen evening Masses on Saturday start as late as 7 o'clock, and then as early as 7 a.m. all the way to 8 p.m. or 10 p.m. on a college campus. So getting to Mass shouldn't be that difficult. So the question is, what about work itself, though, work on Sundays? So I'll give you an example of work that could be efficacious and something that could be used to build up the family. Let's say that the family does gardening on Sundays together as a hobby. And they do this where they spend time working on the garden and tending it. And it's a project that they're working on. But the whole point of the garden is really not about the garden. The whole point of the garden is bringing the family together. And this is a family that has gone to Mass. Maybe they've gone out to brunch and they spend their afternoons doing that. That can be a very worthwhile activity. Now, on one level, you could see on the surface that it would be work, but it's not servile labor, right? I mean, this isn't really necessary for the sustenance of the family, as opposed to the lawyer example I used earlier. I have other people, for instance, for whom Sunday is really, really hard. They're hourly wage earners that work in retail, And the only way for them to make ends meet is to put in Sunday hours. Now, I'll tell you, as a priest in the past, I've had to advocate for some of my parishioners who were being forced by their employer to work hours in such a way that they couldn't make it to Mass. And I literally went to the store and talked to the manager and asked them for some allowance so that the person who really wanted to go to Mass could. Of course, my parishioners were always in a quandary because they were wondering if they were committing mortal sin because they had missed Mass on Sundays. Well, I said, well, it's really through no fault of your own because you're literally being compelled by your employer. So, yes, it's a grave matter to miss Mass, but as I covered in another episode, they certainly weren't intending to miss Mass. In fact, they wanted to go to Mass, but their circumstances permitted them from doing so. This is also true when I was a civilian chaplain to many a Marine at Marine Corps Base Quantico in Stafford, Virginia, where many of my Marines had to stand post on a Sunday because of their military duties. Again, these are not men who were trying to miss Mass, but because of the nature of their work, they had to. Before we continue, I'd like to invite you to collaborate with our mission here at St. Patrick's Seminary. If you'd like to make a contribution, please do so in the link below. And again, we thank you in advance for your collaboration with us in this all-important ministry. They were doing work, but it's work that was necessary, one, for the defense of the country, and two, for their livelihood. That's very different than the person who's just neglecting the family, their Sunday obligations of church, and they're just going off to do work just to get ahead. And that's gratuitous and unnecessary, whereas the higher value that they ought to be pursuing is time worshiping God and time being spent with their family. Now, that leads, of course, us to another interesting related topic, which is what could a Catholic family do on Sunday in addition to just going to church? Well, I always like to say eat out would be fine, be great, but also maybe to take the opportunity to make a small pilgrimage somewhere. Now, it could be a shrine, it could be a church, it could even be an art museum where they have a lot of sacred art. Or it could just really even be a drive in the country where the family gets to spend time with one another and reconnect. I mean, this is the whole notion of recreation. It comes from the two pieces, recreate. So Sunday is supposed to be a day of recreation for us, a day of relaxation and restoration, one that we can imitate God, who takes a day of rest, the Sabbath. And for Catholics, we celebrate that on Sunday, whereas the Jews celebrate that on Saturday. Our Sundays begin, of course, on Saturday night. After 4 o'clock, we can start going to anticipated Masses. But that day is set aside not just as part of a amorphous weekend, but really the Lord's Day, Dies Domini. If you want some further reading on this topic, I really recommend a document authored by Pope John Paul II in the late 90s called Dies Domini, the Day of the Lord, where he talks about the need for us to recover Sunday as that privileged day in Catholic culture so that we can not only reconnect with God and reconnect with our families, but also take time to relax and to contemplate and to rest and to reflect on all the good blessings that God has given us in our lives with firm intentionality to grow in a life of grace and virtue moving ahead. So, is Sunday work prohibited for Catholics? Not necessarily. It can be possible in a very qualified way, but all of the work that we do on Sunday, if it's outside of necessity, should all be geared towards the true ends of Sunday, which is worshiping God and reconnecting with our family, our friends, with our community, and with ourselves through appropriate rest. If you like this video and other videos we provide here at St. Patrick, please feel free to like, subscribe, and share. And as always, thanks and God bless.